Numbers matched with a couple of other things. First, here are my references. 1 in 900 study in circa 2003, I think it was, in Zimbabwe and a couple of other countries in Africa. Penthouse Magazine circa late 1970s, marriage, yearly sex acts, 150 a year versus 3 weekly. The CDC.gov, of course, the PEP treatment. Washington University HSV HIV study 2006, 80 to 90% of HIV living with HSV. Here, turn this around like this. Here are my rough estimates. Okay, as you can tell, the word estimates are up there. Okay, 1 in 900 equals 100% after 6 years, meaning as I did it down here, the 150 comes from here, the 900 comes from here, and you end up with 6 years. That means if you're having sex, you should probably contract the virus within 6 years. It's 100% after that point, using their information. So it's about a 6-year rate. Now, that one is how many got infected in that study versus 900 that actually tried sexual acts. So that comes to once. That means you have about 100% chance every 6 years under that information there for catching AIDS virus. Now let's move over here to PEP treatment. 89% effective or fails. Okay, fails 1 in 5 times to 1 in 10 times. That's 6 times 5 is 30 years, and 6 times 10 is 60 years. That means if you're taking PEP treatment after failing my AIDS exposure tests, which if you've been following me, is where a person has groin sores, hemorrhoids, or you're sharing needles, and the next day you go for PEP treatment. If you realize you've done that, then you've done this. You've extended yourself from a 100% chance of catching an AIDS virus in 6 years, if you're having sex with somebody who's got the disease, to 30 to 60 years, simply by taking that PEP treatment. Now, this is my metrics that I use to develop the AIDS exposure test. Number one is HIV living with HSV, which I got from Washington University over here. 0.6 I got from the CDC site. I'm not sure what year that was, though. Times 90% equals 0.54%. Not very many in the United States have it. HSV, living with HIV, 0.54%, meaning the ones living with both of them, divided by 20% equals 2.7%. Then we have number 3 here, percent of population with only HIV, 0.6% minus the combined total of having both diseases of 0.54 leaves a 0.06%. Then we have number 4 stat, have neither illness. You start out with 100% of the population minus 20% equals 80%. Roughly 80% of the population is disease-free as far as these two illnesses are concerned. Then number 5, percent population living with HIV. 100% minus 0.6 equals 99.95 are living without HIV. That's a pretty good size number. Success rate is 99.4 plus 0.54, which is also 99.94. And I'll come back to that in a second. And number 7 mathematical equation, percent of population living with HSV but without HIV. That's 20% divided by, minus 0.54% equals 19.46%. Now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of what this AIDS exposure test can do for you. See these numbers here? That was taken from this figure up here. Now, if you continue on with my AIDS exposure test, you have a 0.06% of failure, which is 100% in 500 years chance of catching the AIDS virus. If you live that long, tell me about it in heaven, because I don't think I'll live no 500 years. And then you look at this one down here. It came from this one here, which came from this one here, which came from all the way over here. Guess what? 1,000 years for 100% chance of catching AIDS. That's a long time to not have to worry about catching AIDS. Then of course you've got my little thing there. Has been 100% infection rate on as modified by my AIDS exposure test. That's what these two right here were. The 500-year and 1,000-year 100% chance of catching AIDS. Now what's interesting about that is we started out with a 1 in 900 people who were actually having sex with people they knew had AIDS and were trying to catch it from. Now this over here includes this little figure down here where we know how much of the population doesn't have the AIDS virus or has the AIDS virus but is detectable by my AIDS exposure test, which is 99.4% of the population. So I ended up with that. So the simple point is watch out for groin sores, hemorrhoids, or sharing of needles. If you do, you can move your risk. If you utilize that and PEP treatment in conjunction with it, you can move up from 1 in 6 years of having a 100% probability of catching AIDS from somebody who's got it to 1 in 500 to 1,000 years. I mean, 100% 500 to 1,000 years. That's a pretty good statement if you want me to say so myself. Well, Thomas, what's out here? Have a good one.